We're here on Daf Lamed Omid Beis. The Ezo Hi Shabbos Revius. Okay, now we're talking about the Kriya of HaChodesh Hazel Lachem for the month of Nisan. Kol Shechal Rosh Chodesh Nisan Lios B'Socha. So we're talking about a week, and Rosh Chodesh is on that week, and we're going to read Parshas HaChodesh on the preceding Shabbos, the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh. Vafilu B'Erev Shabbos, and even if Rosh Chodesh falls on a Friday, and at this point the Gemara is hinting at Shmuel. Shmuel was of the opinion back on Amud Aleph that in the case of Shkolim and Zachar for Rosh Chodesh Adar and Purim, if Rosh Chodesh falls on a Friday, the reading is postponed to the next Shabbos. If it fell during the week, it is brought back to the previous Shabbos. But with regard to Chodesh, it makes no difference. Shmuel would agree that whether or not Rosh Chodesh Nisan is on a Friday or within the week, in either case, HaChodesh is read on the previous Shabbos. And now the Mishnah says, B'chambishis chozrin l'kisidron. Now we have here a bunch of mnemonic devices for a prearranged calendar. Now, Rosh Chodesh Adar, in a case of a Chodesh of a Shana Muberes, where the second Adar can only occur on 4 days of the week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Shabbos. And that's called Zavdu, Zayin, Beis, Dalid, Vav. Okay then? Now, other mnemonic devices have been established in order to note the weekday in which Rosh Chodesh falls and the day of the month when there's no special portion to read. That's called Zatu, Dad, Bo, and Uvio. And basically, each one of these devices begins with the first letter that refers to the weekday on which Rosh Chodesh occurs. And then, following the first letter, we have an indication of the dates of the month, which constitute an interruption. On all other Shabbosos in Adar, one of the special portions is read, but not on that day of the month, and then we skip that Shabbos. It's an interruption. So, for example, Zatu means Zion is 7 and 2 is 15. So if Rosh Chodesh falls on Zion, which is Shabbos, then the interruption will be on the Shabbos that falls on the 15th, which is Purim in the Mukafin. So Shkolim will be read on Rosh Chodesh, Zachar on the following Shabbos, which is the 8th of Adar, and we don't push off Zachar to the 15th, and that reflects the sheet of Rav, back on Daf Lamed. Then Parah will be read the Shabbos after Purim, which is the 22nd of Adar. The following Shabbos, which is 29th of Adar, HaChodesh is read. So there's only one Shabbos that we interrupt. And we have similar concepts with regard to Bo and Dad and Uvio. Now, the Mishnah tells us that the 5th Shabbos, we go back to the regular Seder. And here we have Machlokes, exactly what that means. L'Seder Mai. Rabbi Ami Omar, L'Seder Parshios Hu Choser, which means that according to Rav Ami, in the cases of the Daled Parshios, we don't read the Parsha of the Shavua, the regular order of weekly Parshios. And once we finish and we're up to the 5th, then we go back to the reading the Parsha Shavua of that week. Rabbi Yomi Omar, L'Seder Haftorah Hu Choser, meaning, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, we will read the Parsha Shavua on each one of the Daled Parshios. It means that Daled Parshios are the maftir, and the rest of the aliyos are the regular order of Seder Parshios. However, in each one of the Daled Parshios, we have a special Haftorah, and that ends after the 4th Parsha, which is HaChodesh. And basically, the various haftorahs we've already covered on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Now, according to Rashi, the regular Parsha Shavua, the Seder HaParshas, is read even on the Shabbos of the Dalit Parshios, as we said before, and then there's a special reading as a Mafta. Omer Abai, Kavasi de Rabbi Ami Mistaber, it's logical to assume that we're not going to upset the regular Seder HaParshios for the sake of the Dalit Parshios. It's none. We have in our Mishnah, Lakol Mafsikin, for all the Yomim Tovim, we're going to interrupt the regular readings. For example, the Rosh Chodoshim will have a special Kriya for Chanukah, for Purim, for Tainios, and for Mamodos. Yom Kippur. And again, Mamodos we discussed during the time in which each Maimad would represent Klal Yisrael. They would fast from Monday through Thursday. They would have special tefillos, and they would read the story of Bereshis. And Yom Kippurim, we discussed, has a special kriya from the Zos HaBroch, the Avodah Zarah. Bishleim L'man the Yom L'Seder Parshas Uchozer. We can certainly understand this Mishnah according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Seder Parshas Uchozer. I'm sorry, according to Rav Ami, you get the names mixed up. Hainu, De'ika Parsha B'chol. In other words, there's a portion that normally we read on a weekday, and now it's going to be interrupted. And that's going to be true for all the above. So let's say, L'dugma Chanukah is on a weekday, it's on a Monday or Thursday, we'll substitute the Kriya of the Parsha, and instead we'll read from the Nesiim, the Parsha Nesiim for Chanukah. Now, fast days and Mamodos also occur during the week and only during the week. So according to Rabbi Ami, our Mishnah is teaching us that the regular weekly portion we read on Mondays and Thursdays is suspended in favor of the fast days, the Mamodos, Chanukah, etc. El Laman di Omar. But now we're going back to the Shita of Rabbi Yirmiyah. The Omar l'Seder Haftorah Suchozer is Haftorah B'chol Mi'ika. And we're talking about days that fall out on Chol, and there are no Haftorahs on a Chol. So the Gemara says, V'idach, how are we going to answer this question and defend Rabbi Yirmiyah? Hakid Isa v'Hakid Isa. Meaning, with regard to certain special days which fall out, for example, on a Shabbos, a Yontif, and so forth, then what it means is that we go back to the Seder HaParshas. And that has to do with the Haftorah, the special Haftorah for the Dalit Parshas, and now we go back to the regular Haftorahs. But if we're talking about Chanukah, Purim, and Mamodos and Tainios, which are on a weekday, so then we're not talking about the Haftorah. There we're only talking about replacing the Kriya itself with the special Kriya of the Dalit Parshas. Gemara asks, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah of Tainios, Lama li Hafsaka, why do we have to interrupt the reading of the regular kriyos and have just an interruption, a break on a tainus? Reading for a fast day should not interrupt the regular weekday reading. And if the interruption can be avoided, we should avoid the interruption. How are we going to set up the special reading for a tainus without interrupting the Kriyas HaTorah of a Monday or Thursday? And that is, Likre Mitzafra Binyon Dioma. We'll read whatever it is for a tainus. I'm sorry, Binyon Dioma means whatever we would read normally on a Monday or a Thursday. And that we'll do in the morning of the tainus. So the mincha And in Mincha B'Tainis, then we'll read Tanisa. We'll read that portion of, let's say, Vayichal, that's appropriate for fasting. So the reason why B'Tainios we need hafsaka and we cannot read the Inyani Diyoma in the morning at Shachris is because we're busy during the morning gathering together the people for Kinufia. For Kinufia means in order to investigate, to be Bodek Maisim, and to try to determine why we're suffering so much without rain and there's a drought. And this is meant to be Ma'ora, the people to tshuva, so that the tfilos on the Tainus Sibur will be accepted on high. So the regular Torah reading it's not replaced by another reading, which would be the reading of Vayichal for a fast day, that there won't be any reading at all. We're too busy dedicating the morning to Kinufia and Bedikas Avonos, no chance of any Kriya. Now I have a note here that the custom today is to read the designated fast day passage both in the morning and in the afternoon, both Vayichal and Shachris and in Mincha. And that doesn't seem to reflect what we're seeing here in our Gemara, Mitzafra Kinufia, and there's no Kriya in the morning. But the Ran already points out that our practice today is we don't have Kinufia, and therefore there's no need to suspend the regular fast day Kriyas Torah in the morning. The Gemara now goes through the events of a fast day. What is the schedule, the luach zmanim of a fast day? Hechi avdinim. Amar Abai, mitzafra lepalga diyoma ma'ininan b'mili demas. During the entire half a day, from morning until midday, we dedicated to bedikas avonos of Masa, of the town. And it sounds like every town has its own gathering in order to investigate their ways. Mipalge diyoma, now you're midday, and from then Lepanya Revia, the Yom, for another quarter of the day, right? In other words, we're going to divide the second half of the day into two parts, is Karinon Umaftere. During that period of time, we'll read both from the Torah and from the Haftorah, from the Nevi'im. Urevia the Yom, we're left with another quarter of the day, Bo Rachme. We'll dedicate ourselves to Bakosh's Rachme. Now the Gemara quotes a pasuk in Nehemiah, which has to do with a fast day, and see how the day was divided up. And it says in the pasuk by Yikru B'Sefer Torah Hashem Elohechem, Revius Hayom, Revius Misvadim U'Mishtachem. So we have one quarter of the day, during which time we read from the Sefer Torah Hashem. Then we have another quarter of the day, which is dedicated to Vidui and to Shtachava. So we see from this pasuk in Nehemiah that we're dealing with the latter half of the day that's being divided into two equal parts for both the reading of the Torah and for Tefillah. So Gemara says, how do you know that this Revius and the other Revius is in the second half of the day? Maybe it's in the first half of the day. Lo sal kedaitel tichsiv. We have now pasuk in Ezra. And this has to do with Ezra when he found out that the people who are coming back to Eretz Yisrael were marrying Goyetas. And he rent his garments. He made a whole to-do, a tinus out of his crying. And he says, V'elai ye'osvu kol chored b'divrei Elokei Yisrael al mal hagola ani yosef mishomeim ad leminchas ha'erev. So around me gathered all those who hastened, chored. They were very zealous at the word of Hashem and of Israel concerning the transgression of the exile, meaning the intermarriage, while I sat stunned until the afternoon offering. Uksiv ubeminchas ha'erev kamti mita'anisi. In the afternoon, I rose from my fast, And that's it. So the Gemara's proof is coming from and I extended this is already the next part of the pasuk, which doesn't appear in our Gemara, and I extended my palms to Hashem, my God, which is prayer. So it seems from this pasuk that the last quarter of the day, that's the appropriate time for tefillah on a Tainus Tzibur. And this brings us to the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Lamed Amud Beis. Pesach Korin beParshas Moedos Shel Torahs Kohen. What are the the special kriyos for the special occasions? For Pesach, we're going to read from Sefer Vayikra Parshas Moados, which you'll find in Perek Chav Beis, Rosh Hashanah Batzeret Shivas Shvuos, and that's in Dvarim Tesvav. Rosh Hashanah b'chodesh hashvi v'yechad lachodesh. That's Vayikra Parshas Emor Perek Chav Gimel. And then we have the Yom Kippurim Achrimos. That's what we mentioned earlier. And that's in Perek Zayin of Vayikra. And Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag Koren b'Parshas Moadot sheB'Torahs Kohanim u'B'Shar Kol Yemos HaChag b'Korbanos HaChag. So again, we're going to read the Parshas Moadim on the first day of Sukkot, and then for the balance of Sukkot, each day we read about the Korbanos Musaf of each day, because each day had a different number of animals. So the Mishnah says that on the rest of the days, we read from the offerings of the festivals, and that means the parsha in Bamidbar Chavches that lists the Korbanos Musa for all the Chagim, including that of Sukkot. So the Mishnah is implying that on the first day of Sukkot, as well as the other festivals, we do not read from this passage. The Chanukah, we read from the Nesiim at the end of Parshas Naso, and that relates to Chanukah because it was the Parsha Chanukah Samizbeach, the Purim, Vayovo Amalek, and now we're talking about Parshas B'Shalach, and the Yom Kippurim, Vayovo Amalek. I'm sorry, B'Purim, Vayovo Amalek. Right. B'Roshi Chadashim, U'B'Roshi Chadashim, and that's in Parshas Pinchas. And then on Mamodos we read the Ma'aseh Bereishis. And in the past we've referred already to the Mishnah in Tainis on Daf Chavav and B'Tainios, and here we turn to Daf Lamed Aleph, Brachos Uklolos. And this is the parsha in Bechukosai, the misfortune, the punishment that's visited upon the world for sin. And this is meant to inspire the people to tshuva and to avert a calamity. Ein mafsikim beklolos, ela echad koreas kulon. So the entire parsha of Klolos should be read by one person. And we'll see why. And then b'sheni u'b'chamishi b'shabbatz b'mincha korin kisidron. Right, we read the parsha Hashavua v'yein olim lahem min hacheshbon. In other words, on Shabbos, we're going to have to read those same parshas. We don't subtract them because we read them already on Monday or Thursday. Shenemar, the underlying principle in the entire Mishnah is derived from the pasuk in Vayikra. It says, "Vayidaber Moshe Moadi Hashem El Bnei Yisrael." At the beginning of the parasha, the modos in Emor, Parshas Emor, mitzvahs yukorin kol echad ve'echad b'zman. So each kriya has to be appropriate for that period of time. Each chag, each moed, should have a relevant Torah passage that's going to be read. And this is where we're going to stop for today, here on the top of Daf Lamed Aleph. And then have a great day.